Hello and welcome to Chakra News. On the 20th of November 1950, that is 75 years ago, the Indian Army's 60th parafield ambulance landed on the Korean peninsula. Over the next few weeks and months, this Indian Army unit proceeded to dispense care, aid, and food for over 200,000 Korean civilians and soldiers. To talk about this very unique deployment of the Indian Army, I have with me at the Chakra studios Colonel D.P.K. Pillay, distinguished military veteran, someone who's spent time in Korea as well. Colonel Pillay, welcome to Chakra News.
Thank you very much for this honor.
Colonel Pillay, without much ado, what is it about this very unique deployment of the Indian Army on the Korean peninsula, which you've studied very closely? Why is it so different? Why is it so important for us to remember this 75 years after it happened?
It's very important to remember this, firstly, because that is just like barely 3 years into our independence. India was a very young country, just came out of a partition, just like what North Korea and South Korea was going through. And then we also been through a terrible war. And we knew the price that the people pay for a war in India, in living up to his reputation of non-violence and, wanting to continue, not non-violence. We believe in violence when all other measures fail. But the thing is that they wanted to limit the war to the peninsula, not let it grow, because it was a war between the communist and the American side. It was North Korea versus South Korea, which are under two different regimes. And we recognized North Korea as an aggressor, which is in the United Nations when it went to war. And we decided to join the 16 plus 5 countries that actually provided fighting troops. And we were the only one that provided a medical mission. Because we didn't want to add to the conflict. But the fact is, we provided the only airborne medical team. We were a team that actually flew with the entire airborne divisions, the American 8th Airborne, 27 Commonwealth Airborne. So they flew in with those people and were on the front line. So they were no less than front line. But they were not armed with weapons. They were with scalpels. They were mending what the war had destroyed, right in the front lines.
In the front lines. That's a very unique deployment in the sense that they were administering first aid to both American allied soldiers as well as North Korean and Chinese
North Koreans
soldiers.
later, but the family, the field, this is a very interesting story. When they landed there in Busan, they went by ship from here, and when they landed on November 20th, there was the offensive that had taken place, and they were there moving ahead, and then the Chinese entered the fray.
In support of the North Koreans.
Yeah, absolutely. They had not entered the fray. Chinese decided, because the red lines had been crossed. K.M. Panikkar had passed the message to the American side that don't cross the 30th parallel, because the North Koreans, the Chinese see the red line. Americans thought China has just recovered from a civil war. There's no way they would have interfered. They underestimated Mao's resolve. The moment they reached the Yalu River, the invasion started and they pushed on. So these troops were moved to Pyongyang and they were supposed to evacuate from there. And they said the British have made an art of withdrawing. They were under the British Commonwealth. Every campaign of theirs starts by a withdrawal, whether it's Dunkirk or anywhere you see. So the fact is that they said, evacuate Colonel Rangaraj with your ambulance. He says, no, I've come with the best equipment my country could provide. I'm not leaving it here. I might as well be a carpenter without my, scalpel. So he says, I'm not leaving. Then they said, there's no troops, you just have to run and move with us, because they were actually running away from the battlefield. That's when Colonel Rangaraj found an abandoned train in the yard. And then there were 2 people who were working for the railways in the World War II. So they asked them, can you get this train activated? And then they got buckets and they actually moved the entire Commonwealth Brigade in the train through that. And then the Americans blew up the bridge. So it's an interesting story how they actually survived. And so they moved down to, and then they split it into 2 parts. There was a civilian component. They set up, in Daegu, there's a place called a civilian hospital. It's called the Death Hospital because anyone came in there died. So these people set up, half the component set up this and the other half went on. They won a lot of gallantry awards. Not only Indian Mahavir Chakra, they also won awards from the Commonwealth and the British American side. So it's like bravery under fire.
Bravery under fire.
Compassion under fire.
Compassion under fire. But Colonel Pillay, explain to our viewers what exactly a parafield ambulance is. How is it a part of the military? What is the role that it actually plays?
So once the airborne operations had come in the World War II, you would have seen those landings that took place, and you've seen the movie called Bridge Too Far.
That's right. Yeah.
You had the airborne troops. So when airborne troops travel, there's an ambulance component also travels with
This
that.
was part of our para
Medical,
brigade.
yeah. That is the first parachute field ambulance was created in 1943. Colonel Rangaraj was incidentally the first paratrooper in the country.
Oh, India's first paratrooper.
Yeah. He was the commanding officer, a dashing, dynamic man.
Right.
Who just doesn't have, he wore his heart on his sleeve, when he carried it. So they were the ones who actually flew in with forward airborne troops and landed in the front lines. So there were occasions when they were not connected by the link-up troops because of the enemy, So they lived without any, only with their white coats, and they survived those harsh winter in Korea. It's
a group of Indian doctors, medics in the front lines, literally in the middle of nowhere. What are the kind of motivation? What motivated them to do what they did? What would you tell a young Indian officer who is listening to you right now?
The very reason why we joined the armed forces, I think every soldier who joins the army doesn't join to go and kill someone.
Right.
We don't join here for the money that we get. I'm not saying it is not much better. It's not the ultimate profit.
Right.
You join because you love your country and you love to serve your country and defend what is valuable in your country. And that's what the doctors personified. They were there to protect lives, and they lived and walked the talk. What the 60 parafield ambulance has done, I don't think any other, in an alien country, in a people that they don't know, they served and they gave their best. There are many people. There were 3 soldiers who died, medics who died. There was Colonel Uni Nair who died. He was a Maratha officer. He was a press. He was blown off in a minefield. There were others who were killed in a mine blast while clearing them. So these people, and one of the greatest things about the Korean War Memorial is we express our gratitude to a people who fought for a country they didn't know and defended a people they never knew.
Where is the Korean War Memorial?
It's in Seoul. And I have the honor of actually being an advisor with them for providing this evidence of this, which has been missing from their records because of the Cold War compulsions that happened. India's role in the custodian force and the neutral nations was kind of obliterated from.
Obliterated? Why so?
Because we were they saw us as being part of another camp because of our non-aligned. It's very much like now what George Bush said, you're either with us or against us. Not realizing the value that a neutral person brings to a dialogue between warring factions. That wisdom is lacking in our statesmen of the world today. Exactly when Mr. Trump tells you that, you don't buy oil from Russia, he doesn't realize that Indians are stabilizing the price of oil for the whole world. So it cannot be, you ban oil from Venezuela, you ban oil from Iran, and then you buy oil from Iraq, which is run by the American companies, incidentally. So it's not. So the value of neutrality is missed by these people.
Absolutely. And as Prime Minister Modi said, that now is not the time for war.
Exactly.
And this kind of
there's never a time for war.
Yes, there's never a time for war, but this reflects our pacifist outlook as well. But, Colonel Pillay, the point we were talking before we began recording about how this unit actually served something like 20,000 soldiers, prisoners of war, and 200,000 civilians. That's a very large number. Why don't we know enough about what they did 75 years back?
I really do. I'm really amazed at how little we know of our own history. How much do you know about the Cholas or the others? So it's not just, it's something that I don't know. The history that is recorded or told to us, it's missing. And the people who fought in the war, and people like me, because I'm connected in some way personally through the family, and then we know about it. But otherwise, it's not memory. It's I think it's very important for us, not just part of the history, but other parts of the history or in our country to know how. I'm not I won't agree with you when you say we are a pacifist country. We are not a pacifist country. We have taken weapons when it's required. We've taken weapons not to kill, but to defend what is valuable. I think that's the difference between an Indian way of fighting and a Western or another way of fighting.
India fights dharmic wars only.
It fights only to defend what is to be defended.
Righteous wars.
Just and unjust wars. So I think if anyone can write a chronicle on that, it's...
Absolutely. So 1971 was a just war.
Absolutely. I totally agree that it was a war. And we left, unlike the Americans have never let the South Koreans forget that we were there to defend you. I think we left immediately to the Bangladeshis to actually run their country.
In 1971.
So we ended the war. We showed that we are not interested in the territory. We
Yes.
handed it over to the people because it is the aspiration of the people to break away from a
Right.
brutal regime.
Right. And I have to ask you this, Colonel Pillay. I mean, I know of your remarkable life and your career. It's absolutely astounding what you did in Manipur so many years back, where you asked for a little girl who had been injured in a firefight with the Nagas. You asked for her to be prioritized for medical attention over you, and you, as you lay there mortally wounded in that firefight, you took that decision. And do you believe that that has shaped your outlook to a lot of things like this, for instance? This one story about Indian doctors who literally helped a nation that they'd probably never even been to in their lives. And so many hundreds of thousands of people were looked after. Is that what drew you to this story, your own personal experience?
I think it's not my story. It's a story of every Indian soldier, frankly. Like you read, when you see the, why is Abhimanyu's death lamented? Because people who took weapons against an unarmed young man,
right,
we know it was a shameful sin, right? Why is Ashwatthama roaming around? So we know there is a certain dharma that is there which has to be upheld.
Right.
And that explains why Prithviraj Chauhan lets his invader go away. Or Marthanda Varma lets Tipu Sultan, taking away only his signature, and go back to his thing. So in our culture, like I said, a war is not about, it's not about it. And that is a philosophy that I've seen practiced in our country, subconsciously or consciously.
Right.
You've seen former militants becoming chief ministers.
Right.
What does it say to you? It says a great about, it's not just me, it's a country doesn't like to defeat its people, it likes to mainstream them. Right. I think that is a philosophy that runs in every single Indian. I think that's something which so when those doctors perform the way they did,
right,
it is something very cultural in our culture. It's something which is ingrained in our thing, to serve and to protect and to defend. For me, when I saw that young girl who was not even old enough to know what her name or a region or religion was, so there's no way I could have prioritized myself when I'm getting paid to fight for you understand, I'm a soldier.
Right.
I'm supposed to defend what my country stands for. My country stands for something larger than, having the blood of young innocent in the child. So that's the same philosophy that drives many of us. You have it in your, I've seen the way you deal with your people. So there is something which is very culturally ingrained to us, to our stories that are repeated to us. There is something, and we try those 4 things, formulas that Chanakya has given. We try to. So it's something that is part of our cultural.
It's part of our cultural ethos, indeed. And I have to ask you this, Colonel Pillay, in conclusion, that the Indo-South Korean bilateral relationship. South Korea calls India a brother nation from the Korean War. I haven't missed that line. How is this shared history, this very interesting nugget of the 6th Parafield Ambulance working over there, how has that influenced the strategic partnership between India and South Korea?
You'd be surprised.
Today?
You'd be surprised. It's not just the 60 Parafield. 2,000 years ago, there was a princess who sailed from Ayodhya.
Yes.
Half of the Koreans recognize herself as descendants of the Queen Hyo, who went from here. There's a book called the Samyuga Rasa that's recorded the story of this lady who went from here. And I was amazed when I went to those temples. I'm telling you this. I went to Japan, I went to Korea, I went to a lot of those places. Everywhere there's mention of the Indian influence that is existing. I'm really amazed at where that India vision. And in that India, the Buddhas are not different from the Buddha that exists there is layered on Hindu pantheon of gods. Right. There's Varuna, there is Garuda, there is Narayana, there is Ganesha, there's everything.
Yes.
So I keep wondering, if that was built on it meant that Buddhism was built on a pillar that existed.
Right.
It wasn't. Yeah. So when I hear that there's a conflict between Buddhism and Hinduism by our New Age historians, I think I just tell them I would like them to go and visit there and understand how is it that a country that had Buddhism that is taken from here doesn't have that conflict. Then they should have, when the Buddhists went there, they should have actually thrown out all the Hindu gods, right?
Right.
But it is that you find Ganesha when you go to Japan or Korea, and then you find a large number of Sanskrit texts. So this relationship is not just something that is there now.
Right.
And you heard of the K9 Vajra, which is one of the...
Yes.
So it's a great partnership.
Howitzer. Yeah.
And we would have had a great partnership. But for our, great bureaucracy, which doesn't, really look beyond certain things.
Right.
So, but there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of respect for Indians, by the way.
Yes.
Because probably it's cultural, like I said, because of the Buddha and the people, the learned people who went from here. Armies didn't go. Learned people went from here.
Right.
One man would teach them the art of, a lot of things. There is a lot of deep-founded respect in this, which we are failing to capitalize. In the name of secularism, we are trying to disconnect ourselves from the past. But the fact is, the respect comes from the past.
Right.
And of course, the 60 what they did is not something which is new. It's not the British who taught us to be compassionate.
Right.
It's Indian soldiers who went under Indian banner who did it. So,
absolutely.
And then the neutral nations and custodian force, we are missing out completely. There's the neutral nations headed by Lieutenant General Thimaya,
right,
who actually negotiated for the handover of the prisoners. There's a custodian force headed by Lieutenant General Thorat later,
right,
who actually oversaw the prisoner swap program. So and the soldiers, they were like, there's a letter from Dwight D. Eisenhower, the President of the United States, to Prime Minister. He says it looked like every single soldier was handpicked by you,
right.
The level that they did to protect, and uphold this image, dignity, and that absolute neutrality
Right.
that is done, walking the talk. I think that's a prize that we all, we should aim for that kind of a thing. I wonder at that amazement of that generation, and I look at us and today,
Yes,
and where we are, like when you read stories or looking for making a quick buck, or where's that value-based interaction,
Right.
value-based.
Absolutely fascinating, Colonel Pillay. And what a nugget from India's military history you've shared, which actually talks about the civilizational ethos of India, and of course this long 1,000 years connection that we have with South Korea, which is this amazing East Asian tiger.
It's a tiger.
But it is indeed.
It's 22nd century country.
Right.
Everything is seamless. Everything is so, the quality there, even the pavements is like a piece of art.
Right.
And the discipline that you can leave your mobile on a road and be sure that you'll get it back.
It's a lot to learn from South Korea. But thank you very much, Colonel Pillay, for your time and for your thoughts. And we keep coming back for you for stories like this one that you've given us. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much.